What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Planet Zoo. As always, if you guys are enjoying this series, make sure you leave a like on the video. It'd be greatly appreciated. Since the last episode, I have done a little bit of off-camera decoration, or I guess you could say redecoration, because over here we used to have like a picnic table type sitting area. Bagus has matured. Oh, if Wingus and Dingus have both matured, I think we might be in trouble for our otter exhibit. Okay, we're gonna leave things paused for right now. We'll come back to the otters here in just a moment. But we used to have like a picnic table type sitting area here. This is now all plants. It's looking much nicer. The guests just didn't want to sit out there because the buildings, obviously, they don't really like sitting next to those staff facilities. In addition to that, though, I finally was able to go through and add all the underwater vegetation to the otter exhibit. It's looking so much nicer under here, and I think the otters are absolutely loving it. Now, in the front, we also have a very cool fountain. This is just a standard asset that you can drop down. It's kind of like a pre-made thing from the game, of course. The only thing I changed with this is I got rid of the smaller rocks that were around the perimeter. I thought it just cleaned it up a little bit. Now, for these otters, what do we got going on here? Dudes and dudettes? Or dudes and dudette, because there's 3 dudes in here and just 1 dudette. I think this is mom there. Okay, here we have 1 bebe, now fully matured. That is Wyra or Weira. Don't know how to pronounce that one. And then this is old Wingus and Dingus, or Bagus. Same thing, right? He's supposed to be an adult right now, but he's still in bebe form. 100%. Come on, dude. What are you waiting for? Don't you want to be old? Don't you want to be an adult? Here we go. That's it. That's all it took. A little bit of encouragement from us, and he is now old as well. So let's take a look at their habitat. Just make sure that they're still chilling. Okay, plant coverage is still good. I was worried that with the addition of 2 adults into this habitat that they would have less navigable land and water area, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So they're actually chilling, big chilling, but they are an alpha type species. So I really don't want these 2 strapping young lads to start competing with dad for their mom. That's just not a good road to go down. So we may end up giving those 2 otters there up for adoption. But we'll get to that here again in just a moment. Now, what I want to do today, the main focus for today, is I want to create our next major exhibit. And the animal I want to work with today is none other than the red-crowned crane. I want to make a pretty substantial aviary for these animals. Now, I could be wrong. Can the red-crowned crane actually fly? Would they even need to be put in an aviary? But the area that I had in mind for this aviary is right here where we have these nice buildings we built previously. So the first thing we need to do here is just get these things moved on over. It's actually going to work better over here, I think, because we already have staff path out here. You know, the staff are going to be walking out here anyways, or at least the mechanics. Now that we've got these buildings repositioned over here, the last thing we have to do is create a staff path leading into the mechanic workshop right there. And that's it. Pretty cut and dry, pretty easy. As for this Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Transformer, whatever you want to call this thing, I think we're actually going to have to sell this and then temporarily place down a solar panel or something like that, because the guests don't seem to mind being around the solar panels. It's really just the Transformers and like the water treatment facilities, stuff like that. They really don't like the noise of, but solar panels, thankfully, don't make any noise, so I guess they're just cool with it. If we have a look at our electricity heat map right here, the only thing that the solar panel is powering temporarily is going to be our vendors right here. Very necessary. Eventually, we'll have like a different transformer and stuff. I'm just trying to clear out this area. So now we have this nice blank slate. I think we're ready to start on this aviary. The first thing I want to try to make here is kind of like a viewing house that'll be later attached to the basically bird cage, the big bird cage that we're going to end up creating later. So I'm just going to start by laying down some very simple plaster walls so we can start figuring out the shape of this thing. I also need to say this. Actually, I probably don't need to say this because I'm sure you guys can just infer. Yesterday, obviously, was the 4th of July. So I didn't really sleep much at all. I was up very, very late. So apologies that I'm maybe a bit sluggish today. With our basic layout complete, the basic shell now finished up, I want to take a little bit of inspiration from our front entryway building with these vertical like boards. They add a little bit more texture, a little bit more depth to the walls. So I'm going to try to recreate that over here as well. We're going to be using the classic roof trim. Of course, it's not going to mount this way, but we'll rotate it around and make it look all purdy and whatnot. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking super, super good out here so far. The only real hurdle that I faced trying to add a bit more dimension to this was on these window and door openings. We kind of had to add together some smaller boards to make up one larger size board. It's a bit confusing, but it did come together very, very nicely. I opted in to go with a white color for right now. We may end up changing that before too long. Time will tell. But now I'm going to spend probably the next 30 to 45 minutes trying to make a custom door and a custom window, or 2 custom windows, to fill in these slots.
A few moments later.
Okay, thankfully that didn't take near as long as I was estimating it would. That's mainly because I decided against a completely custom door because, you know, the guests are just gonna walk straight through the thing anyways, so I might as well just leave it an open doorway. So that's exactly what we have here. Some very basic windows as well, just sort of a outside frame and then some glass in the middle. Very, very simple, but effective. It definitely adds a little bit more to the overall structure. Next, we're gonna move on to the roof. And I think you guys can probably assume which roof we're going to end up using. Not the thatch roof like we did in the previous episode. Not the red roof like we have for the Otters. But we're going back to old reliable. We're going to basically just copy the gray roof right here. And I want to try to do a little bit of an overhang, a bit more of an overhang on the front of the building than what we usually do. So we'll see how that plays out, I guess. Okay, as you can probably tell, I decided against the whole more overhang idea. Tried it out, it just wasn't really looking that great. I am, however, very happy with how this roof came out. So we're basically gonna have a viewing house. It's kind of gonna be a similar thing to what we have over here, but 3 of the 4 walls are actually gonna be enclosed around it, if that makes any sense. So this will be the interior space. You'll be looking into what we're going to build next, which is going to be basically just a massive bird cage. So I've already typed mesh down here. I think I'm going to try to use the 4x4 meter mesh panel, and then we can sort of build a framework around it. That way we can essentially copy and paste it over and over and over again until we get the total size and shape of the bird cage that we're after. So this again is going to take me a tremendous amount of time. I'm not going to bore you guys with trying to do a time lapse because it always looks awful. Anytime that you try to do a time lapse of something and your camera moves a lot, it's just not going to turn out looking all that great. So I will see you guys here in just a moment.
Many minutes later.
You guys, I really wish there would have been some way for you to warn me about how difficult it was going to be just to create the corner of the roof of the aviary. This little like triangular pyramid type structure took me like 30 minutes just to construct, and it is not perfect by any means. You can see along the edge there. This is just tiny little pieces of mesh that I've tried to get to work. It's good enough. It's good enough. Thankfully, the mesh is so thin that from, you know, couple 100 feet away, it's gonna look pretty dang good. So now that we've got all of our pieces configured, all we have to do now is the good old copy and paste method, and then hopefully we'll have a pretty nice looking bird cage.
3 hours later.
A few seconds ago, at least for you guys, I had said, oh, this is gonna be super easy. All we have to do is just copy and paste all these little fence pieces we created, and we'll be done in no time. I wish it were that easy. I have been here for almost 4 hours now, and all I've managed to do is create a massive empty bird cage and a tiny little house kind of on the front of it. This is easily the most difficult structure I've ever tried to create in Planet Zoo, and to be completely honest with you, in my mind, prior to like actually trying to create it, I thought it was going to be the simplest thing ever. That couldn't be further from the truth. So what we're left with is obviously pretty good looking, but what we need to do next is kind of grab the grid from this building here. These are actually two separate things. I started as one big structure, and then later on I just decided to separate the two. So we're going to place a path down right there. We're going to go up. Now we're going to reselect the grid on the sloped path. What that's going to do is kind of create the grid right in the middle, which will give us that sweet spot for adding in a floor onto the inside of the building. That way the guests can actually walk in there now. On the front, I wanted to do a staircase, but the entire building isn't quite high enough to do that. So we're just going to do a very basic ramp leading into there. I'll probably end up changing like the path texture and whatnot. I'm not too terribly fond of the way our main path is looking right now, so I'm just going to try to smooth it out as best I can. I wish we could just delete this thing and completely start the intersection over, but unfortunately the path over here is way too close to the habitat barrier, so it's just not going to let us continue from this point. But that's fine. With the addition of this massive glass panel for our guests' viewing area and a habitat gate, I think we're finally ready to purchase some of these red crown cranes. But our inspector is just now leaving. They actually gave us 3 stars for our education. I didn't add anything or change anything since the previous episode. We still need a lot of like conservation boards and other stuff like that, but apparently our education is magically better, which is good news, I suppose. But anyways, these cranes, dude. We've got to at least drop these cranes in today. And since we're like just getting started with our crane exhibit, I don't think it's super important that we get like the creme de la creme, male and female. Oh, wait, what? Excuse me? Hang on. Our otters are pergnat again. Please tell me that they did not have any incest. It's kind of difficult to tell. All it told us is that the mom is pergnat yet again, but it didn't say who the dad is. So I'm hoping it's the existing dad and not one of their babies. Bebe, sorry. Oh, also, my arm is super itchy and like red and inflamed. You probably can't see it that well. I got stung by a bee yesterday. So I think. It happened while I was mowing, and it itches and kind of burns. Anyways, back to the cranes. I'm gonna grab this one right here. Seems like a decent male. Send to the zoo. Habitat numero tres. And then let's get... Oh, there would be a much better male right after we buy one. Of course. Happens all the time. Let's get the female that has the better stats. This one? Yeah, definitely this one. There we go. We'll add her to the zoo as well. And then there's probably going to be an even better one now. Not really, actually. I think we made a good call there. We've got our caretaker right here, bringing in, I would assume, the male, probably first. Oh, wow, they're quite a bit taller than I was expecting. They're, like, just as tall as our caretaker was. Interesting. We also have a keeper coming to check on the new birds as well. Let's get the second one dropped in. God, dude, this arm, I can't stop itching it. It's so bad. A new animal has arrived at the zoo. Fantastic news. Okay, these 2 birds are going to be super peeved with us because all we've given them is grass. And to be completely honest, I think we're going to have to save like the interior decoration of this exhibit for a later date because, as I mentioned, I spent way too much time on the initial structure. But that doesn't mean we can't take a look and see what they need right meow. So let's do exactly that. They're definitely going to need some water. That is for sure. And they also need more soil. Okay. This counts as hard shelter? The entire aviary counts as hard shelter? Dude, that's fantastic news. I was kind of worried we were going to have to like build them some dumb looking cave, even though cranes don't obviously sleep in caves, but that's just kind of what we do. That, or we just drop in something like this, some sort of structure that gives them a little bit of cover. And look at that. This is going to be our indoor viewing area of these. And I'm actually sort of thinking of changing the color of this building a little bit. It might look sort of like a circus tent for just a minute, but let's add A little bit of red. Kind of looks like a barn as well. I just want to see what this would actually look like. Ooh. Ooh, I really dig this. What about on the inside, though? Yeah, I'm cool with the red. Dude, let's do that. That looks insanely good. And it just makes sense, too. You know, red crowned crane. Wow, it looks way more like a barn from the front. Well, I'm still kind of getting circus tent vibes, though. Anyways, red crowned crane, red viewing area, right? Kind of makes sense in that regard. We should, at the very least, give them just a little bit of temporary water. I'm sure they'd probably appreciate that a great deal. Oh, where are you guys going? Hey, it's cool. It's just a little bit of water. Nothing to be afraid of. You know what? We actually gave them like just enough to where they're satisfied for right now. So hopefully they don't get too upset with us about the fact that we don't have any actual decoration in their exhibit just yet. And hopefully you guys don't get too upset with me that I spent way too long yet again on just the basic structure and didn't actually get any decorations added. But I do think that's probably where we're going to wind down this episode at for today. So once again, if you guys did enjoy, please leave a like, leave a comment, help support the dream by smashing that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Peace.